I have a little bit of breaking news to discuss. This is of real importance. And I think, honestly, if the current state of affairs was not so fucked up, this would be like a week-long story on Twitter, but I'm just going to get into it. RFK Jr. has brain worms. Or rather, sorry, need to issue a correction. RFK Jr. has brain worm.
Yep. Or I guess you would say had brain worm, because I think the story was that he had it and then it just died, and now it's there.
Yeah, it could not withstand like an hour of living in RFK's mind.
Yep. I think that would be true. Most organisms are not evolved enough to handle that.
He took one bite and was like, wait, what the fuck? But the Bluetooth, like, gives you leukemia? What?
Yeah, the brain worm sadly turned into a diamond instantly the moment that RFK Jr. started thinking about the germ theory of disease. The pressure bearing down on it was so incredible.
That worm crawled up his nose with like a fucking lobster bib tied on his neck. It was getting ready to just go to town. No, you're trapped in here with me, buddy. Nobody's getting out of my brain alive. But this is from the New York Times here. It says, in 2010, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was experiencing memory loss and mental fogginess so severe that a friend grew concerned he might have a brain tumor. Mr. Kennedy said he consulted several of the country's top neurologists, many of whom had either treated or spoken to his uncle, Senator Edward M. Kennedy, before his death the previous year of brain cancer. Several doctors noticed a dark spot on the younger Mr. Kennedy's brain scans and concluded that he had a tumor, he said in 2012 deposition reviewed by the New York Times. Mr. Kennedy was immediately scheduled for a procedure at Duke University Medical Center by the same surgeon who had operated on his uncle, he said. While packing for the trip, he said he received a call from a doctor at New York Presbyterian Hospital who had a different opinion. Mr. Kennedy, he believed, had a dead parasite in his head. The doctor believed that the abnormality seen on his scans was caused by a worm that got into my brain and ate a portion of it and then died, Mr. Kennedy said in the deposition. Now an independent presidential candidate, the 70-year-old Mr. Kennedy has portrayed his athleticism and relative youth as an advantage over the two oldest people to ever seek the White House, President Biden, 81, and former President Donald J. Trump, 77. Mr. Kennedy had secured a place on the ballots in Utah, Michigan, and Hawaii, his campaign says, California and Delaware. His intensive efforts to gain access in more states could put him in a position to tip the election. I got to say, this Kennedy family does not have a good record when it comes to brains.
No.
They are really...
This one has that feeling, too, of it being like he was displaying erratic and irresponsible behavior, notable even in a Kennedy. Like, it feels like one of those things, like, how much like RFK Jr. do you have to be acting before someone's like, we got to check and see if there's a worm in there, just in case.
I mean, I'm glad this came out in like a deposition that the New York Times uncovered, because for a second there when I saw this story, I was just thinking, this is what RFK Jr. is saying on the campaign trail.
Oh yeah,
he's like, everybody, I thought I had a brain tumor. It turned out it was only a worm that ate part of my brain and then died.
I think that's like the crowd work portion of everything that he does. Like where he just gets up there and he's like, how many of y'all got a worm in you that you can't explain how it got there? And like all the hands in the room go up and he's kind of like, I've had a similar experience. Everybody's, like, I think that's like his demo. Like certainly all this stuff in the article about like diagnosing yourself with a worm is like, I think that's like 100% approval rating among Kennedy voters as a thing to do. And then I feel like also there's the other aspect in there where he got his blood spun, which is another like really popular thing to try to get, because he like, this was for the, I don't want to get ahead of it. There's another poisoning aspect in the story that I'll let you get to.
For decades, Mr. Kennedy suffered from atrial fibrillation, a common heartbeat abnormality that increases the risk of stroke or heart failure. He has been hospitalized at least 4 times for episodes, although in an interview with the Times this winter, he said he had not had an incident in more than a decade and believed the condition had disappeared. About the time...
Does anything in this guy's body like work right? Like it's like problem after problem. It's so insane. It's like it's like if how they made Cadillacs before the bailout. It's really fucked up. And like it all goes back to his horrible voice, which is, I think, his biggest problem. And like I don't really believe in Mandela effect for the most part. but I feel like there was a minor one with RFK and all his medical problems. He was, before he was known for being the vaccine guy, he was like a big environmental guy. And I always made the assumption like, oh, someone like poisoned him as a kid, like, oh, he was in the Bhopal disaster somehow. And that's why he's all fucked up.
He summered at 3 Mile Island.
Yeah, I thought, something like that. And I thought, like, that's why no one's talking about all this guy's maladies. But it turns out he just got it from, like, sharing needles and, like, sticking his head in punji traps for no reason. Just all unforced human error.
Like, going on with his medical problems, it says here, about the same time he learned of the parasite, he said, he was also diagnosed with mercury poisoning, most likely from ingesting too much fish containing the dangerous heavy metal, which can cause serious neurological issues. I have cognitive problems, clearly, he said in the 2012 deposition. I have short-term memory loss. I have longer-term memory loss that affects me. In the interview with The Times, he said he had recovered from the memory loss and fogginess and had no after effects from the parasite, which he said had not required treatment. I mean, well, assumably they took it out of his. Well, I guess it just died and sort of, I don't know, like he became part of his brain. Yeah.
With the power of his ideas. They're allies now. It's like he has like a Quado in there.
Turn off the vaccine, quick. Yep. Open your mind to my parasite, to this worm. But yeah, no, it's unfortunately the brain worm being deceased couldn't endorse him in time to be joined on stage by his other big endorsement this week, Kevin Spacey. Yeah. The coveted Kevin Spacey endorsement. This is what we've all been waiting for. The
Spacey endorsement is so good too, because he's like, when everybody realized what I was like,
yes,
and all the crimes that I did, all the things that I did that no one should do, only one man stood with me, and I'm endorsing him today for president of these United States of America, which is just, that's how you do it. That's the Spacey method, but it is also like, yeah, that's about as good an endorsement as you're likely to get.
Yeah. It says here, the campaign declined to provide his medical records to the Times. Neither President Biden nor Mr. Trump has released medical records in this election cycle. However, the White House put out a 6-page health summary for President Biden in February. Mr. Trump released a 3-paragraph statement from his doctor in November. It's a nice 3-paragraph statement. And, I just love it. And the Times article is right. RFK Jr., like, his blood is like a thermometer, and he's got like big dig style holes in his brain, and he is absolutely the spryest of anyone running for president.
Yeah, there's
absolutely the best. Yeah.
In the story from the spokesperson for his campaign, where they asked about like whether this would be an issue, and it's like one of the like most painful you do gotta hand it to him moments imaginable, because the person is just like, that's a ridiculous question given who else is in the race, and you're kind of like, I guess he does have some good ideas. The campaign does make some points.
But, like I said, I feel a little bit robbed by this story because obviously the state of the world is so appalling right now that, like, if this were just a regular presidential election, Robert Kennedy having a worm in his head would be like, I feel like we'd get a lot more juice out of that.
Having gotten mercury poisoning because he gave himself Jeremy Piven's disease. That's his claim in there.
Yes,
he ate so much tuna.
Well, like in the article I read, he said, I love tuna fish sandwiches. I couldn't get enough of them. And that's like, you're a Kennedy. You can't at least get like mercury poisoning from eating sushi. Yep. Tuna fish sandwiches. It's just such an idiotic way to catch such an idiotic ailment.
Yeah. Like, you should honestly die of mayo exposure before the mercury gets you if you're eating tuna fish salad. Like tuna
just
salad.
Your arteries,
yeah.
Just your arteries will go before your brain for the mercury.
Your celery levels are way out of whack. Are you using the Joy of Cooking recipe?
I mean, sorry, just like one last graph here. It says like, I missed it. But basically, mercury poisoning and brain parasites can cause neurological impairment, but also sometimes people fully recover. I just like every time this shit comes up with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I'm just like, can this guy like talk about something other than what I'm supposed to do with my body and health? You know what I mean? Like, could you just like, I don't know, maybe ratchet it. I mean, you gave yourself mercury poisoning from eating tuna fish, and you're getting mad about me about a fucking vaccine.
He also has pursued medical interventions with a level that, again, is like super high, even for the cohort that supports him. It's mentioned, I think, at the very end of the story, they note that he has like a titanium throat now in an attempt to remedy the whatever the name of the disorder is that Felix was talking about, where it's he only can talk in burps. That he got like some special treatment that he says has like made it a lot better. But it is the sort of thing where he's always like finding the one doctor that will do this surgery for you. It's just a very risky way to live one's life.
Wolverine.
Yeah, right.
Like if he became president, he would be our version of that Chinese emperor who drank mercury to become immortal. That would be like a day one promise from him. He'd be like, I'm opening the alchemy department again.
But he would get there somehow by like just eating some unfashionable mid-century casserole made with canned tuna to get there.
Yeah, he would eat meat from one of those sharks that has like too much like lysine in it to the point that it's toxic for humans. He would eat like one of those Greenland sleeping sharks.
You know, if you're looking for a healthy source of protein, I cannot recommend highly enough an 800-year-old Greenland shark that was alive when Shakespeare was writing Hamlet. If you can get one of those, you know, put maybe a little cracker, a little spread. Oh, good stuff.
This
but
is how
a good,
you actually
clean source of protein.
If you wanted to do an op to like take out Kennedy types, like people with like Aaron Rodgers disorder, like any of those guys, you would just be like, you got to eat. If you want to be alpha, you need to eat at the very top of the food chain.
You need to eat other alpha animals.
You need to eat the thing that eats every other thing if you want to become the thing. And then, that's when you're eating like whatever, a whale shark, and then instantly developing diseases that were eradicated in the 13th century.
Kennedy campaign on hiatus after Kennedy diagnosed with scurvy. He's being treated with a regimen of lime juice. Well, best of luck to both RFK and Kevin Spacey on the campaign. I'm hoping we get Kevin out on the campaign trail with him. You know, I want to see events with, you know, he's like, you might remember me from such films as Glengarry Glen Ross and The Usual Suspects, and a few other things I've done. But I'm here today to support the only candidate that stood with me when everyone else. David, like you said, Kevin Spacey said, when the world turned on me, when the world turned their back on me because of the, you know, numerous rape allegations, Robert F. Kennedy was the only one who stood by me.
That's been a weird thing over the past 6 months. Like, why has Kevin Spacey become like a partisan issue? Like before this, like Tucker had him on and was like, do you think people should apologize to you now that you've killed all your accusers? He was like, yes.
Boeing is calling up Kevin Spacey asking, how did you do it, Kev?